welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I'm Naila Shaja, and these are the headlines. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says India wants to sabotage peace in the region by creating obstacles. Talking to the media, the Foreign Minister said promotion of peace in the region is the top priority of Pakistan. Qureshi said Prime Minister Imran Khan will visit Azad Kashmir on the 5th of August to express solidarity with the Indian-occupied Kashmir. In Afghanistan, the Taliban have attacked 2 airports in an effort to neutralize the air power of the Afghan Air Force. A Taliban spokesperson said the fighters attacked an airport in Herat province a day after hitting the Kandahar airport with mortar shells. This comes as the Afghan Air Force stepped up airstrikes to stop the Taliban's rapid gains in the raging conflict across the country. Fifteen soldiers have been killed and 6 more are missing after a terrorist attack in southwest Niger. The Defense Ministry said the soldiers were first ambushed and later hit by an improvised explosive device. The ministry said its forces have launched a search operation to apprehend the terrorists. In Yemen, government forces claim to have killed at least 40 Houthi fighters in the last 2 days in the Marib province. The military said that its forces and tribesmen pushed back the rebels' assault on the provincial capital's mountainous areas. However, Houthis have not yet commented on the government's claim. Brazil has reported 464 COVID-19 deaths and more than 20,000 infections in the past 24 hours. It is as tallies approaches 20 million. Meanwhile, Pakistan has registered 40 deaths and over 4,800 cases overnight. Globally, the death toll has surpassed 4.2 million with more than 198 million infections. And in the Tokyo Olympics, Argentina beat Germany 3-0 to reach the semifinals of the women's hockey tournament for the first time since 2012. Meanwhile, Puerto Rico's Jasmine Camacho Quinn won the gold in the women's 100-meter hurdles. China is leading with the 24 gold medals, followed by the United States with 20 and hosts Japan on 17. Stay tuned for more news in detail. We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says India wants to sabotage peace in the region by creating obstacles. Talking to the media, the Foreign Minister said promotion of peace in the region is the top priority of Pakistan. Qureshi said Prime Minister Imran Khan will visit Azad Kashmir on the 5th of August to express solidarity with the Indian-occupied Kashmir. The Foreign Minister said solution of Kashmir and Palestine issues is inevitable to promote peace across the globe. He said the Prime Minister is highlighting Kashmir, Palestine, and other issues of Muslim Ummah at all international forums. Qureshi noted that the international community is now raising voices against Indian brutalities in Kashmir. In Afghanistan, the Taliban have attacked 2 airports in an effort to neutralize the air power of the Afghan Air Force. A Taliban spokesperson said the fighters attacked an airport in Herat province a day after hitting the Kandahar airport with mortar shells. In a tweet, a Taliban spokesperson said the fighters fired mortar shells at Herat's Sindad airport, killing 4 Afghan soldiers. The group also claimed to have captured multiple security checkposts in Nangarhar and Parvan, leaving nearly 30 soldiers and policemen dead. This comes as the Afghan Air Force stepped up airstrikes to stop the Taliban's rapid gains across the country. Meanwhile, former U.S. Commander to Kabul, General David Petraeus, says Washington did not fulfill its duty to protect democracy in Afghanistan. He said Washington has abandoned Afghans to face a bloody and brutal civil war. For more on this, we are joined by Mr. Arshad Yousafzai, an analyst speaking to us from Peshawar. Mr. Yousafzai, thank you so much for speaking to Indus News. Now, Mr. Yousafzai, the fighting in Afghanistan is getting worse by the hour. Why do you think the Taliban have started attacking airports, and whether these attacks will hinder the exit of the foreign troops?
Well, the attacks are increasing because, one of the fact is that the Taliban had a plan that as soon as the foreign troops leave Afghanistan, they will start taking as many cities and as swiftly as possible. So that is why we are seeing attacks all around the country now. The reason they are attacking airports, especially the attacks yesterday on airports in Herat and Kandahar, are one of the reasons behind this is the Taliban believe that it's a retaliation. They are linking it as a retaliation to the bombardment that they suffered day before. The reason these attacks on the airport are because they believe that the Shindan airport in Herat in particular was used to attack Taliban convoys in Guzara and Adrat. Now, I don't think that this will delay the withdrawal of the foreign troops, because the foreign troops are committed to leave. And as soon as the September 11 date approaches, it is quite sure that all the troops will leave Afghanistan. And by then, the Taliban believe that they would have captured many areas compared to they are now, which is almost half the country. So they will be in a better position to dictate their terms as they did before the start of Doha Agreement or Doha talks.
Mr. Yousafzai, the United Kingdom has already voiced their soft approval of working with the Taliban if they would come into power. Do you believe that a military takeover of Afghanistan by the Taliban is inevitable, or do the Afghan forces possess the capacity to fight back?
Well, it's not just the UK at the moment. Other European countries too are starting to soften their image or their attraction towards the Taliban. But one thing is for sure, the Taliban have been capturing areas that are far from the major cities, that are not well guarded at the moment. Particularly border areas, small towns or villages or districts that are far from the city centers. So we haven't seen the worst of the fighting yet. The Afghan troops haven't put up any big fight yet. I fear that in the future, when just like it's happening in Helmand and Herat now, so I believe that the fighting will escalate in the future.
Mr. Yousafzai, experts say that the reason behind the rapid Taliban gains is that President Ashraf Ghani's corruption. They say that the Ghani government continued receiving funds for ghost soldiers, while the number of security troops on the ground was nearly half of what he had mentioned in the books. How much of this is true?
Corruption is one of the major issues. The people of Afghanistan are not happy with the current government. And they believe that one of the reasons that the Ghani government administration is asking the foreign troops not to leave, the Ghani government would want to have an extended period of taking out more corruption money as much as possible for them, and to extend their regime to get more benefits from the Western countries. So I believe it is agreeable to greater extent that corruption is one of the major issues of the current government. And, things were shown not exactly as they were. The preparation of the Afghan troops, it was not as was shown. It was propagated by the Afghan politicians in their books or on social media. It was just a hype that they had created. But in reality, things were worse than that.
Mr. Arshad Yousafzai, thank you so much for speaking to Indus News. Now, moving on, 15 soldiers have been killed and 6 more are missing after terrorist attack in southwest Niger. The Defense Ministry said the soldiers were ambushed and later targeted with an improvised explosive device. They said 7 soldiers are wounded in the attack on a supply mission to Troudi commune. The ministry said its forces have launched a search operation to apprehend the terrorists. Niger is a regular target for militant groups that are growing stronger despite the deployment of thousands of regional, Western, and UN troops. In Yemen, government forces claim to have killed at least 40 Houthi fighters in the last 2 days in the Marib province. The military said that its forces and tribesmen pushed back the rebels' assault on the provincial capital's mountainous areas. The Yemeni military said that the government forces seized control of a mountain in the south of the city. He said Arabs coalition warplanes also conducted several aid raids in Marib. It said the fighting is also ongoing in the provinces of Laj, Yuf, and Al-Baida. Meanwhile, Houthis have not commented on the incident so far. The United States has joined Israel and Britain in accusing Iran of last week's deadly attack on an oil tanker off the coast of Oman. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Iran attacked the Israeli-operated tanker using explosive drones. Earlier, Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett said Tel Aviv will retaliate against what he says is Iranian aggression. Iran, however, has denied involvement in the incident, calling the allegations a blame game. The U.S. military said its Navy is assisting the tanker, which it believed that was hit by a drone strike. Brazil has reported 464 COVID-19 deaths and more than 20,000 infections in the past 24 hours, as its tally approaches 20 million. Globally, the death toll has surpassed 4.2 million, with more than 198 million infections. More in this report. The Indian Delta variant continues to fuel the deadliest coronavirus surge across the world. The U.S.'s top infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, warned that more pain and suffering are on the horizon as COVID-19 cases climb again. A day after it recorded the most new daily cases since the start of the pandemic, Florida has broken a record for current COVID-19 hospitalizations. While over in Europe, protests over government's COVID-19 rules and restrictions continue. In the German capital of Berlin, several hundred people have been arrested by the police over protest against the newly imposed curbs.
There were several hundred, then several thousand. There were suddenly 2,000 in the western part of the city, and we were quite fast to react to that. And then here close to the Victory Column, a new situation started building up. First, there were only around 100 people, and then suddenly there were over 1,000. But we were able to stop them so that they weren't able to get together and overcome the ban.
Britain has offered COVID-19 booster vaccines to 32 million people from early next month. Pfizer and Moderna have reportedly raised the prices of their jabs in their latest European Union supply contracts. In China, several cities have rolled out mass testings of millions of people yet again and imposed fresh travel restrictions. This comes as China battles to contain the country's most widespread coronavirus outbreak in months.
We carried out measures including taking temperatures, checking negative nucleic acid certificates and green health QR codes, and registration in all communities and villages in Yansun Township, where the communities under control are located to stop the entry of outsiders. We lowered the attendance rate in office buildings to 50%. During the lockdown, residents in Yansun Township are not allowed to leave Beijing in principle.
Meanwhile, in Australia, a snap 3-day lockdown in Brisbane and some neighbouring regions has been extended for another week. Hundreds of Army personnel have begun patrolling Sydney to help enforce COVID-19 lockdown rules there. Pakistan has reported 40 deaths from COVID-19 over the past 24 hours, with more than 4,800 daily infections. The Health Ministry says that the nationwide death toll has risen to 23,462. According to the health authorities, the positivity rate of cases has risen to 8.61. The ministry noted that the number of active cases has surpassed 73,000, of which more than 3,400 are in critical condition. It said the caseload has crossed 1,039,000, while over 943,000 people have recovered. The National Command and Operations Center is set to discuss the surges in coronavirus cases in a meeting today. Educational institutions across the country have reopened today amid COVID-19's worsening fourth wave driven by the Delta variant. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome to the most Welcome back. A high-level delegation of the Arab Parliament has arrived in Pakistan. It will be briefed on the Kashmir situation as well as on the developments in Afghanistan. The delegation is led by Bahrain's Parliament Speaker Abdul Rahman Al Asumi. The delegation have meetings with top officials of the host country during its 5-day stay. Al Asumi was received by Senator Sana Jamali, who has been designated to conduct the visit. The invitation for the visit was extended by the Senate Chairman Muhammad Sadiq Sanjrani. Pakistan has strongly condemned the former Canadian minister's unwarranted remarks regarding Islamabad's role in the Afghan peace process. In a series of tweets, Foreign Office spokesperson Zahid Hafiz Chaudhry said Chris Alexander's remarks portray a complete lack of understanding of the issue as well as ignorance of the ground realities. Chaudhry said Islamabad has asked Canadian authorities to take steps to address this motivated and malicious smear campaign. He said such remarks are deplorable after the world has begun to acknowledge Pakistan's positive role in the conflict. For more on this and Pakistan's response to the remarks of the Canadian diplomat, we are joined by our correspondent Minahil Ahmed. Minahil, so can you please tell us a little bit about the members of the visiting delegation and their schedule?
Yes, the president of the Arab Parliament, Abdul Rahman Al Asumi, is on a 5-day visit to Pakistan. He is accompanied by senior officials and senior members of the Arab Parliament. They're here on a 5-day visit where they have already met with the Senate Chairman Sadiq Sanjrani and are currently on their way to meet the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Shah Mahmood Qureshi. They earlier also met with President Arif Alvi, where they discussed bilateral ties and issues of mutual interest. The delegation was received by Senator Sana Jamali yesterday at the Islamabad International Airport and also scheduled to meet Prime Minister Imran Khan later today, hopefully. The time hasn't been confirmed yet, but they are scheduled to meet Prime Minister Imran Khan as well. But so far, they've met with Sadiq Sanjrani, who's the Senate Chairman of Pakistan. They also met with President Arif Alvi and are currently having a meeting with Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi. Details of the meeting will be disclosed in a little while. But right now, what we do know is that they're currently in a meeting.
Minahil, can you tell us the objectives of this visit?
Yes, you see, this is the first visit of Al Asumi to a non-Arab country following his post as a president of the Arab Parliament. So this itself highlights of what a significant meeting and what of key importance this visit is. Certain MOUs are expected to be signed between the Arab Parliament and the Upper House of Pakistan. Such as focusing on areas of military security and political ties as well, to increase political ties, and also cultural to cultural linkages and people to people linkages. Further, the parliament will also be apprised on the issue going on in Afghanistan. Pakistan will highlight the efforts it has made to facilitate the Afghan peace process and will also highlight the ongoing issue in occupied Kashmir. Pakistan will highlight the atrocities committed by the Indian forces in Indian occupied Kashmir, and especially following 5th August 2019, of how occupied Kashmir has been in a complete curfew and communication blackout. So these are some issues that will be raised by the Pakistani side.
Minahil, now about the Canadian diplomat's remarks. The Foreign Office's response has been very strong. What prompted such a strong worded statement and condemnation?
Yes, you see, the remarks that came by the Canadian minister were extremely unneeded and uncalled for. Pakistan is one of the few countries who really has made efforts to facilitate the Afghan peace process. Pakistan was one of the main countries who were in talks with the Taliban and brought them to the table to start the Afghan peace process. Prime Minister Imran Khan has repeatedly said that Pakistan has no favorites in Afghanistan. It does not support any group and will welcome welcome an Afghan-led and an inclusive, broad-based, comprehensive Afghan-led decision that will be made by the people of Afghanistan. So the Foreign Office in Pakistan deeply believes that such statements are just spoilers towards the Afghan peace process, and instead all energies should be focused on bringing peace and stability in the region rather than making such statements that could probably ruin the Afghan peace process.
Manahil Ahmed, thank you so much for updating us. Now, moving on, in Lebanon's coastal town of Khalde, unidentified gunmen have killed at least 2 people in an attack on a funeral of a Hezbollah commander who was killed a day earlier. Hezbollah said the attack on mourners was a planned ambush. The military warned that it would fire at anyone carrying weapons on the roads. The military said one of its soldiers was also injured in the shooting. Lebanese media reported that the violence is rooted in a personal vendetta. Egypt's military says that it has killed 89 suspected insurgents in the North Sinai region. It said over 400 improvised explosive devices and 13 tunnels were also destroyed during the operations. 8 Egyptian soldiers were also killed during the fighting. Egyptian forces have for years fought an insurgency in the Sinai Peninsula. Attacks have risen since 2013 ouster of former President Mohamed Morsi. Over 1,000 suspected militants and dozens of security personnel have been killed in the Sinai since February 2018. Ethiopian Airlines has denied its involvement in transporting weapons and soldiers to the war-torn Tigray region. In a statement, the state-owned airlines refuted the claims as baseless. This comes as calls to boycott the airlines erupted over its alleged involvement in the 9-month-old conflict. The accusations appeared in numerous social media posts with pictures of soldiers boarding one of its planes. In Palestine, Hamas's Shura Council has re-elected Ismail Haniyeh as the head of the movement's political bureau for a second term. He directed Hamas in an 11-day conflict with Israel in May, in which more than 250 people were killed in Gaza from Israeli airstrikes. Since 2017, Haniyeh has controlled the group's political activities in Gaza, the occupied West Bank, and areas outside of the Gaza Strip. Hamas holds its internal elections every 4 years in secrecy due to Israel's security crackdown against the group. Turkey has summoned the Greek chargé d'affaires in Ankara following the killing of its citizen in a cross-border fire near Merik River. In a statement, the Turkish Foreign Ministry said Ankara has asked for a proper investigation. Turkey also called on Greece to take preventive measures to avoid repetition of such incidents. Ankara and Athens have been at loggerheads over territory and hydrocarbon resources since last year. Pakistan's Navy and Pakistan Maritime Security Agency have conducted a joint operation south of Karachi to rescue the crew of a sunken cargo ship. Officials say 15 out of the 18 crew members have been rescued. Authorities said search operations are underway to find the missing crew members. They add that the ship sank due to strong winds and tides. The ship was transporting cargo from India to Somalia, carrying Syrian crew members. U.S. senators have introduced a sweeping $1 trillion bipartisan legislation on infrastructure. The massive package is a top priority of President Joe Biden and will be the largest infrastructure investment in decades. Around 24 negotiators, including Republican Senator Rob Portman, spearheaded the 2,700-page bill. It will invest in roads, bridges, ports, high-speed internet, water, and other critical infrastructure. Senators termed the bill as an important step in modernizing the outdated infrastructure of the country. The 100-member chamber is expected to pass the legislation this week. If passed, the bill will go to the House of Representatives before President Biden signs it into law. In the United States, 7 new wildfires have erupted, taking the total number of active fires across the country to 91. Officials say the raging flames have burned through more than 1.8 million acres so far. Over 22,000 fighters and incident management teams are engaged in battling the blazes. The bootleg fire in the state of Oregon has been contained by 74%. However, it is not expected to be fully controlled until October. Meanwhile, California's largest fire, Dixie, has grown around 245,000 acres in size and is 32% contained. Authorities say some 38,000 fires have already scorched more than 3 million acres this year. The monsoon moisture moving into the region is expected to stomp out some fires and quench the dry vegetation and soil. Shares in major Asia-Pacific markets have risen. Investors are looking to set a positive tone to the week's trading despite lower than expected Chinese manufacturing data and the 1% drop in oil prices. Mainland Chinese shares and the Nikkei 225 in Japan have jumped close to 2%, leading the gains. Australia's ASX 200 is trading close to 1.5% higher. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index has also gained almost 1%. Stocks in Seoul have also ascended over 0.5%. In the Tokyo Olympics, Argentina beat Germany 3-0 to reach the semifinals of the women's hockey tournament. China is leading the medal standings with 24 goals, followed by the United States with 20 and host Japan on 17. More on the games in this report. Day 10 of the Games is scheduled to feature a total of 22 gold medal events. Argentina dominated Germany to make it to the semis in women's hockey for the first time since 2012. They now face a showdown with either Australia or India in the Final Four on Wednesday. Puerto Rico secured its first gold after Jasmine Camacho Quinn won the women's 100-meter hurdles. Matildis Tengolu of Greece won the men's long jump gold, besting Cuba's Juan Miguel Enchivara and Mikel Masso. Meanwhile, Dutch women Sifan Hassan brilliantly recovered from a fall to advance into the semifinals of the 1,500-meter heat. The 28-year-old will have to recover quickly, as she is also scheduled to run in the 5,000-meter final today. It's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.